I'm Joe Averill, and with Steve Allen with me, I'll get to him right away. We've got a problem here of trying to define Steve Allen because he's many things, and your biography goes into some bad quotes that I don't think you're responsible for about the Yellow Pages and the people you're responsible for. And
that's actually a good line. It's Andy Williams' line, not mine.
Yeah.
It's a funny joke.
Yeah. Is that a particular source of pride to you that you do a lot of things?
No, any more than it's a source of pride to me as to how tall I am or how many toes I have on my left foot.
You're serious now?
I'm very serious, yeah. I once, since you raised the issue,
yeah.
I once gave a sermon at a church in New York on the subject of pride. It was once considered one of the 7 capital sins, which is to say one of the most serious sins that could be committed.
Sure.
I haven't heard anybody say, oh boy, am I guilty of pride in about 400 years now, We're sort of proud of it now. We call it patriotism and, thinking you're great. There's a lot of great forms of pride now. I still think it's dumb, which maybe is what a sin is.
Do you resent being thought of, I think most people think of you as a comedian, a funny man?
No, I think it's nice.
Yeah.
How funny I am, that's for others to say, but I am, among other things, a comedian, just as I am a pianist, a composer, an actor, a producer, director, whatever. So I started to say earlier, before we were on the program here, that mankind, or humankind, if the ladies care, is the versatile animal. All the gorillas do the same thing, and all the salamanders do the same things. But there are literally hundreds and hundreds of thousands of things of which humankind is capable. So it's not that big a deal that I can do a dozen of them,
Do you find that your kind of humor is not really saleable today in American television?
No, I've never found that. Fortunately, in 30 years, I've just done 2 new comedy specials for NBC. So for whatever the reasons, it seems more saleable now than ever.
Well, I mean, are you not on regular network television now by your choice?
No. A performer, as you know, being in the business, is in one respect precisely like a plumber or a painter or a roto-rooter man. You are help for hire.
Yeah.
I mean, Frank Sinatra doesn't call up NBC and say, clear out Tuesday night, I'm coming over. They call him, if he's lucky.
No, but everybody likes you. You're one of the best-known men in America. You started the Tonight Show. Why wouldn't they say to you, hey, when Johnny Carson leaves, let's have Steve Allen do it?
I don't know.
Would you do it if they asked you?
No, I don't want the job. I had 11 years of talk show duty, and it was great fun. I wouldn't have missed a minute of it. But that would be going back in my career. I've been working in prime time now since 1956. There's not much sense going back to, the late night where they just have a small audience. My advice to Johnny would be to stay right where he is until he drops dead at the age of 87,
Yeah.
Got a great job there.
I agree with you.
It's easy money. He does a wonderful job of it. What's he got to quit about?
Well, why does he want to quit? Do you have any idea?
Let's get him in here and ask him. I can understand it, actually. As I say, 11 years of it was fun, but I wouldn't want to go back to it. And it does get a little bit brain-numbing, I think, to do the same thing for 17 years. I couldn't do the same thing for 17 years, even if I only did one thing for a living.
What do you think about television today in America?
Pretty much the same thing everybody else does. Almost everyone
Stinks?
agrees that most of it does. Most of it's trash, and I've never heard anyone argue against that contention. The dumb people say most of it's trash, and the brilliant people say most of it's trash. They simply differ as to which is the trash and which is the good stuff.
Well, it's always amazing to me, Steve, that the ratings demonstrate that a lot of the same people who watch, I hate to name the show but let's say who watch a lot of the high performance shows also watch 60 Minutes.
Yeah.
Same audiences blend. Some people watch both.
That is odd, because 60 Minutes is television at its best. It's the kind of thing we used to have more of and should have more of now.
Yeah. Well, I'm asking you because you have a unique perspective. You are in the business, and yet you are an open person, it seems to me, and you listen to people, and you travel a fair amount of time, and you try and soak in, I think, the moods and feelings of this enormous land, and I wonder what you think it all is leading us to.
Well, I think television, aided by other partially destructive forces in our society, has had the effect of softening, deteriorating the national intelligence in the last 30 years. We are demonstrably dumber as a people than we were 30 years ago. As I say, this is demonstrable. It is measurable. It has been determined by the constantly downward movement of various test scores and so forth. People don't write as well as they used to, think, and they certainly don't spell, all those things. And I think one of the reasons for that is television, certainly not the only reason. I've compared television, I used the phrase once, junk food for the mind. Eating a candy bar is not really harmful at all. A lot of marvelous people, I eat candy bars, boom. But if you eat 3 candy bars a day for 40 years, then it's a whole different kind of problem. So watching you know, How Dumb Was My Father, or whatever is the latest stupid show,
Right.
doesn't really hurt you. But watching that kind of stuff from the age of 4 to the age of 24 will hurt you, if that's mostly all you watch. You know?
Now, as we see you now, and you've been serious now for several minutes, is this really kind of you, or do you try and think of funny things to say to come back? Because one of your trademarks to me has been your quick repartee in any given situation.
Yeah, no, I never try. As a matter of fact, what I sometimes consciously try to do is not say something funny, because there are times when it is by no means appropriate.
Indeed.
The classic instance of that occurred when Jane and I were being married. During the ceremony, we had gotten to that point where the clergyman was saying, repeat after me, you know, I, Steve Allen, rich or poor, sickness and health, those things.
Yeah.
And just at that moment, out in the garden, a dog barked. And believe it or not, I started to go and repeat the bark. The part of my brain that, you know, does nonsense for a living started to do that. And Jane, who knows me very well, squeezed my arm. She knew, and she said later, she said, were you going to bark? I said, yes. She said, I knew it. I could tell you were just about to bark. But I withheld the bark.
How important do you think humor is to your life?
Well, it made me the wreck you see before you today.
Yeah.
But humor is of enormous importance in the world. Comedy is about tragedy.
Explain that to me. Stop.
All right, I'll explain it to you. If you think of the last 100 jokes you heard, and you spread them out on a table and pick them apart, you'll see that almost everyone, and probably everyone, was about bad news. Jokes are about how stupid people were, how sexually frustrated they are, how they lost their job, how they had a fight with their wife, how they wrecked the fender of their car, whatever it is. Comedy is almost entirely about bad news, so far as the subject matter is concerned. And the purpose of humor, if one can speak about purpose in the evolutionary context at all, seems to be as a painkiller, something that enables us to get through the day by chuckling, you know, if we're not crushed totally, by the major and minor tragedies which characterize life on this planet.
Your phrase, in the purpose of the evolutionary context, makes me ask you, do you question what you're doing here in the first place?
Yeah, I think every intelligent person does. Even when you finally settle on a firm philosophical construct, I think the more intelligent you are, the more you will concede you have moments of doubt. I worry when I hear people say, I never doubt anything. I think the Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini never doubts. I wish he would from time to time.
Well, I think everybody does, but some people hate to admit it.
As I say, everybody does, except the fanatics, and fanatics are dangerous. I don't care if they're, you know, if they go to church where I do, they're dangerous.
Do you have favorite comedians yourself?
Yes, Sid Caesar is my favorite comedian in the context of television sketch comedy. Groucho was my favorite parlor wit. Robert Benchley is my comic hero of all time.
All people of the past.
Yeah, but I'm a very easy pushover for today's comedians. In fact, I laugh very easily anyway.
I hear that you carry a tape recorder with you all the time. There's one with you there, I think.
Yes,
yeah,
here it is.
that you're constantly saying things into it. Now, how much of that stuff, and I hear it's reams,
yes,
really turns out to be thoughtful, worthwhile information?
Well, in my opinion, about 99% of it. Whether,
okay.
You know,
well, what would you think an objective view? You're an objective.
It's very practical for me to work this way. I do all my writing by dictation for the last 7 or 8 years. I don't use a typewriter anymore. And the only difference that has made is that I turn out a much larger volume of work. I write neither better nor worse by this means. I am fortunate in that I am able to speak in sentences, and apparently I'm somewhat unusual in that regard. Very few people anymore speak in sentences. So since writing consists chiefly of sentences, this works out well. Now, in the average day, I may dictate, say, 15 jokes, ideas for 3 song lyrics, maybe I'll hum a melody for a tune, maybe an idea for a movie script, 3 letters to Jane, a grocery list. It could be many different things, not all of it's work. You know. Remember to go to Cleveland on Tuesday or whatever. And then I leave these tapes at the house in the morning. My secretary, one or another of them, comes by, takes the tapes to the office. And when I get there about noon, I've got maybe 20 or 30 pages of rough material, and I then function as an editor, having already dictated the categories. I just finished a book on China, for example, so for the last 2 or 3 years, there's been a lot of stuff dictated on China.
Have you been to China?
Yes, 3 times.
Okay.
And so whatever I'm working on at the moment, I was the head writer on a comedy show I just did for NBC, so there was a lot of that stuff getting written in the last several weeks. So whatever I'm involved with, this is how it gets done.
Thanks very much.
Hey, thank you very much. Great questions.
Thank you. We'll be right back.